Remember when making a phone call meant spinning a wheel? In the 1970s, rotary phones were the norm in every household. But today, they're nothing more than nostalgic decorations. From clunky dials to sleek touchscreens, we've come a long way. Join us as we explore 25 everyday items from the 70s that have become completely obsolete in our modern world. You won't believe how much has changed. Picture this. It's 1975, and you're trying to call your friend. You walk up to a chunky plastic phone mounted on the wall. Your fingers find the familiar holes of the rotary dial, and you start spinning. Each number takes a moment as the dial whirs back into place. No speed dial, no touch screen, just patience and a steady hand. Rotary phones were everywhere back then. They were sturdy, reliable, and got the job done. But they were slow. Dialing a wrong number? That meant starting all over again. And forget about any fancy features. These phones did one thing and one thing only: make calls. But what if you weren't at home? That's where public phone booths came in. These glass boxes were scattered across cities and towns, a lifeline for communication on the go. You'd step inside, close the folding door, and hope you had enough coins to make your call. It was far from private, but it was all we had. Fast forward to today, and the change is mind-blowing. Our smartphones have replaced not just the phone, but dozens of other gadgets too. Camera, calculator, calendar, music player, map, they're all right there in your pocket. It's not just about making calls anymore. We text, video chat, and send emails, all from a device smaller than a rotary phone's handset. This shift has completely changed how we interact. Back in the 70s, calling someone meant committing to a conversation. Now, we can fire off a quick text or leave a voicemail. We're more connected than ever, but in shorter bursts. It's changed our expectations too. Remember when you had to wait by the phone for an important call? Now, we expect instant responses. Privacy has come a long way too. In the 70s, many people shared party lines with their neighbors. You could pick up the phone and hear someone else's conversation. Today, we have end-to-end encryption and password-protected devices. Our conversations are more secure, but we're also sharing more of our lives online than ever before. All these changes add up to a lot of time saved. Studies show that modern communication tech saves the average person about 2 hours every day. That's time we would have spent looking up numbers in phone books, waiting for calls, or tracking down a payphone. While phones were getting smarter, our music devices were undergoing their own metamorphosis. Picture this. It's 1975, and you're about to play your favorite album. But instead of tapping a screen, you're gently lowering a needle onto a spinning disc. What would you say if I told you that this ritual, once so common, would become nearly obsolete in just a few decades? Back in the 70s, vinyl records were the kings of music. They weren't just popular, they dominated the market, accounting for about half of all music sales. People loved them for their rich sound and the whole experience of playing a record. You'd carefully slide the black disc out of its sleeve, place it on the turntable, and watch it spin. The warm crackle as the needle touched down was part of the charm. But what if you wanted to take your music with you? That's where 8-track tapes came in. These clunky cartridges were a big deal, especially for listening in your car. They didn't last long, though. By the early 80s, they were on their way out, replaced by smaller, more versatile cassette tapes. The changes kept coming, faster and faster. Cassettes gave way to CDs, which seemed like magic at the time. No more rewinding or fast-forwarding through songs. Then came MP3s, letting us carry thousands of songs in a device smaller than a cassette. And now, we've got streaming services that put millions of songs at our fingertips. This isn't just about how we play music. It's changed how we listen to it. In the 70s, you'd sit down and listen to a whole album, start to finish. Now, we're all about playlists. We mix and match songs from different artists and genres, creating our own personal soundtracks. The music industry has been turned upside down. Remember record stores? They were more than shops. They were hangouts where music lovers would spend hours browsing and discovering new artists. Today, Algorithms do a lot of that work for us, suggesting songs based on what we've listened to before. Here's something to wrap your head around. In the 70s, the average music fan might have owned about 100 albums. Today, streaming services offer access to over 70 million songs. That's more music than you could listen to in several lifetimes. Just as our music habits evolved, our living rooms underwent a radical transformation. Remember when changing the channel meant physically getting up and turning a dial? In 1975, movie night looked very different. You'd gather around a boxy TV set, fiddling with rabbit ear antennas to get a clear picture, and your viewing options? Pretty limited. Back then, most households had access to just 3 or 4 channels. No DVR, no on-demand. If you missed your favorite show, you missed it. Period. We planned our evenings around TV schedules, racing home to catch that must-see program. It was a shared experience with families huddled together, agreeing or arguing about what to watch. But then came a game changer, the VCR. By the mid-1980s, about half of American homes had one. Suddenly, we could record shows and watch them later. We could rent movies and enjoy them at home. It was revolutionary. No more missing out, no more being tied to the TV schedule. We became masters of our viewing time. Fast forward to today, and the change is mind-blowing. Streaming services have taken over, offering endless choices at our fingertips. We've gone from waiting a week for a new episode to binge-watching entire seasons in a weekend. It's not just about more options. It's a whole new way of consuming content. But the transformation of home entertainment goes beyond TV. Remember Pong? That simple tennis-like game was cutting edge in the 70s. Now, we've got virtual reality headsets that transport us to entirely new worlds. Gaming has evolved from a niche hobby to a multi-billion-dollar industry with experiences that rival Hollywood blockbusters. All these changes have had a big impact on how we interact as families and friends. In the 70s, TV time was often family time. Everyone gathered around the same screen, sharing the experience. Today, it's not uncommon for family members to be in the same room, each watching something different on their own device. Here's something to think about. In the 1970s, the average American watched about 3 hours of television per week. Now, we're consuming 3 to 4 hours of content every day. That's a massive increase in our screen time. While our living rooms were transforming, an even bigger revolution was brewing in offices across America. Imagine walking into a 1975 workplace. What would you see? What you wouldn't see might surprise you even more. Let's step back in time and witness the dawn of the computer age. Picture a typical office in 1975. The air is filled with the rhythmic clacking of typewriters and the rustle of papers. File cabinets line the walls, stuffed with folders and documents. This was the norm for decades, but it was about to change dramatically. Back then, even simple tasks were time-consuming. Typing a document? One mistake meant starting over or using messy correction fluid. Filing? It meant physically sorting papers into cabinets, hoping you'd be able to find them again when needed. Calculations? You'd reach for a bulky adding machine or calculator. Everything was manual, slow, and prone to human error. But change was coming. The personal computer revolution was just beginning, and early adopters were discovering new possibilities. These first PCs were far from user-friendly. They used command-line interfaces, requiring users to type specific commands to perform tasks. Despite their complexity, these machines began to transform how we worked, offering unprecedented speed and accuracy for calculations and word processing. The evolution was rapid and relentless. Command lines gave way to graphical interfaces, making computers accessible to more people. Bulky desktops evolved into portable laptops. And now, we carry more computing power in our smartphones than early PCs could dream of. But computers didn't just change our work lives. They revolutionized education, giving students access to vast information resources. Shopping transformed, too, from local stores to global online marketplaces. And our social lives? Social media platforms have redefined how we connect and communicate. These changes brought both benefits and challenges. On the plus side, we've seen incredible increases in productivity and efficiency. Tasks that once took hours can now be completed in minutes. We have access to more information and opportunities than ever before. However, there's a flip side. The always-on culture enabled by modern technology has blurred the lines between work and personal life. We're more connected, but also more stressed. The constant influx of information can be overwhelming, and concerns about privacy and security in the digital age are very real. Here's a staggering fact to consider. A significant percentage of today's jobs simply didn't exist in the 1970s. Roles in data analysis, cybersecurity, and digital content creation are now commonplace, reflecting the massive impact of computerization on our economy and society.